jargony type word. But again, as you're going to like buy lenses and do things, you need to be aware of that. And again, like lens choice is also going to affect your composition. So we're going to look at some different, so here's like 28. 28 being that, you know, wide angle lens. You're going to see quite a bit. This is way more than if I was just standing here that I can really see. Here's a 50. Can't even see. But 50 again is just kind of like your typical normal, like that's what you see. It's considered a normal lens. And then you have something like a 105, 85, 200. That's going to be a telephoto. You know, I was not standing out there with him. So again, like, it's just the lens that you choose is going to determine, you know, what you are, what you want. Maybe I don't want to zoom in on him. You know, maybe I want a huge wide angle image of this glacier, and I'm sure I have that shot. You know, but this one I was like, no, I'm going to put on, you know, my telephoto lens because I want to zoom in on him. Okay, light. So again, like, the amount of light that's coming in is very important as far as exposure, but light also has color. Light has direction. We talk about the quality of light. And a lot of that has to do with time of day. I heard somebody use the word lazy. Yeah, like that was me. Number one, if you want to become a better photographer, like immediately, only take photos in the morning and at night. If if you're out and you're traveling, and sometimes it's hard if you're on like a set trip and they're like, we're going to the farmer's market at noon. Your images are automatically not going to be as great as if you got up at sunrise and you were at the farmer's market as this beautiful golden light, you know, is all over. That will automatically make you a better photographer if you get up and if you go shoot at night, you know, or go shoot, you know, around that sunset time, and then, you know, even into like the twilight of evening, beautiful light. So light has color. We're not going to get too much into it, but it's the Kelvin scale. You know, it tends to be like super blue or super, you know, super orange and super warm. If you play with Instagram, I mean, you can pretty much immediately see there's images that have that blue tone to them. There's images that are super warm, and what's funny too is you'll start to realize which images you like better. And that will start to affect like how and when you choose to photograph, because maybe you don't actually want to shoot sunset when it's all orange and happy and gorgeous. Maybe you actually like the light like right afterwards when it starts to get a little bit cooler and a little bit bluer, maybe a little purple. Something to think about. Direction is, you know, front light, side light, backlit. All of them kind of have their own place, and you can shoot in all of them, but just kind of be aware as you're out there. And then again, like quality, like that gorgeous morning light, evening light, that's what you want to be looking for. This is a photographer named David Allen Harvey. This is his book about Cuba. And he is a definite, you know, this image is great. Purple, right? Like these are, you know, this is when he likes to go shoot. Here's this beautiful blue. We are gonna keep, again, like look at this image, and then we're gonna keep talking about composition, all those other things. That gorgeous blue, it is not noon. You know, if it was noon, this image doesn't exist. You obviously have some beautiful light shining, you know, on this church. He's got rule of thirds going everywhere. You know, just a well done image. Something else that we'll talk about maybe more in composition is the idea, like, you know, this horse is really nicely framed, right? If the horse was actually like cut off by his elbow, immediately not as strong of an image. I mean, it works because it's perfectly in this little frame. It's kind of something to think about more. Loves photographing, you know, in this evening light. And I'm going to tell you what to do if you have to photograph at noon too, because sometimes you just don't have a choice. We'll talk about it. So, again, like AM, golden light, cheery, PM, dark blue, purple, mysterious. That's probably the number one thing. Even if you're shooting on automatic, if you just start shooting when the quality of light is fantastic, your images will automatically look 1,000 times better. Alright, photo challenges. Time of day. I don't have a choice. I have to go shoot at noon. Convert that image to black and white. It really does make a huge difference. So you don't have this amazing cheery quality of light or whatever you're looking for. Converting something to black and white really can make a difference, because then it becomes a lot more about like shadows and other things that you're seeing. So you have to go out and shoot at noon, start thinking like a black and white photographer, and convert your images. Sunrise and sunset. Oh, we didn't really talk about white balance. One more thing that your camera's choosing. This one's going to be a little bit easier because I think most people's cameras do an excellent job of choosing white balance. So I would probably leave that alone. But again, white balance, it's choosing that color temperature for you basically. Like it's choosing a number. So it's choosing how warm or how cool this image is going to be. Now again, like as you keep going and getting better and getting stronger about what you really want your images to look like, you might tell your camera, well, I want you to make my images a little bit warmer. I want you to make my images a little bit cooler. And those are settings that you can choose. Most people actually have like great settings too, where it's like automatic, or here's sun, here's cloudy. And again, like, so if I set it on cloudy, it's basically, the camera's saying, okay, it's gray outside. She doesn't want a gray image. I'm going to make it warmer. So some people always shoot on cloudy because they like warm images. Something that you can choose. Or, like I said, most of the time, your camera does an excellent job of choosing white balance. So just leave it on automatic. Sunrise and sunset. White balance can be tricky because your camera is being super overwhelmed with that orange light. So it's kind of thinking, I'm going to make this less orange. Again, you want to be a better photographer, so I'm going to tell the camera, no, I'm shooting at sunset. I want it to be orange. So you can, change your white balance. You could even put it on cloudy when you're shooting your sunset, and it's gonna retain those colors. Low light, definitely huge, huge challenge. High ISO is huge. That's the first thing. If I was walking into a space, the dark dance hall or concert venue or something, the first thing you're gonna do is start with your ISO, probably in that 1600 range. Yeah.
Is ISO going to affect much about the shutter speed and the motion it catches?
Nope, nothing.
Okay.
All it's doing is letting more light in. So at 100, it's not letting as much light in. At 1600, it's letting more light in. But it's not affecting depth of field. It's not affecting motion. Well, that's not totally true. Again, they're all affecting the amount of light that's coming in, but it's probably the least dramatic effect. Start with your ISO when you're in that dark place. Start at 1600 and then start playing. You're probably going to end up shooting at your widest aperture and then at your slowest shutter speed that you can handle. So say, I'm at 1600 and I'm at my widest aperture, which is 1.4, and it's still too dark. Okay, it's still too dark. So I'm going to start to slow down that shutter speed. Now again, here it's still too dark and I'm at a 30th. Okay, so I might put it on something less, but I better have a tripod. So, that's where the tripod comes in handy. You can also, at that point, choose to raise your ISO. A little bit of noise to get the image that you want isn't that big of a deal. There's There's programs that you can use to eliminate that noise later. So don't be afraid. I mean, look at whatever your camera's highest ISO is and try to never use it. But if you start at about 1600, you know, in a dark place, and then, you know, go up from there just to get the image that you want, you'll be fine. All right, image editing. You know, we come home from our trip. Yeah.
You just said you better have a tripod if you have low or fast shutter speed. I don't understand the relationship.
Oh, because I keep slowing down my shutter speed, it's going to be really hard for me to hand hold this camera at a 15th to get the image that I want. It's going to be blurry. If I put it on a tripod, then I can shoot. Now again,
why that shutter speed?
I mean, a lot of it has to do, you know, just with like, you know, we're squirrely, and you don't even think about it, or even, you know, sometimes depending on what it is, even just like this motion, I mean, you're gonna move the camera. You're gonna move the camera, and it's gonna be blurry. That's where the remote comes in really handy sometimes.
Also self-timer, you can put it on an object.
You can put it on and use the cell timer is a brilliant way to do it too. There's also, you know, there's a proper way to hold a camera. I see people do really weird things. My biggest pet peeve is this. Again, like this is a fixed lens camera, so there is no zoom. Like I zoom with my feet, which is a good way to do it. But if I had on, you know, my big telephoto or whatever, I see people go to zoom and they do this, and then they start to zoom. And number one, like my camera now has no base. You know, like everything is swirly. Like this cracks me up and makes me giggle. You know, you should hold your camera, hold the base of your camera, and zoom like this. You know, that's all you have to do. Now my camera's staying, you know, nice and steady, and I can zoom. There's no reason to move your hand or do anything. You know, give your camera that nice solid base. And then, you know, all this kind of stuff too, like especially if you're shooting at a slow shutter speed, you know, tuck in. I will totally admit, you know, when you start to shoot verticals, like the elbow comes out, I mean, again, like the more like tucked in and stable you can stay, the sharper your images are gonna be. So yeah, there's that. So image editing too. I'm a huge fan of this Adobe product called Lightroom. I don't work for them or anything, obviously. Lightroom it's the photographer's version of Photoshop. Like people talk about Photoshop all the time. Photoshop is this ridiculously robust program that you need about this much of, and what that much is Lightroom. So just buy Lightroom. It also costs, you know, a sixth or something of what Photoshop costs. You also don't have to buy Lightroom. I mean, use whatever comes with Apple, or, you know, use whatever comes with your Mac, or, what is that program called? iPhoto? Thank you. Oh, it's not iPhoto anymore?
It's photos now.
Okay, so use that. This is a little hard to see. The reason that I love Lightroom is because it's both, it's image editing, but it's also your catalog. So you're talking about, like, I have thousands of images and I have no idea what to do with them. I mean, again, you can catalog everything in Photos, you can catalog everything in a program like Lightroom. You know, you can using keywords is really helpful. But I love Lightroom because it catalogs all the images, and then I can just go straight into some sort of editing mode. People talk a lot about editing photos and what does that mean, and, you know, get it right in the camera. And I gave you a lot of tools to get it right in the camera, but every now and then, you know, things need tweaked, and our cameras aren't perfect. Again, it's, you know, it's your vision. Some people see shadows very purpley, some people see greens yellowy, some people see greens, you know. So don't feel bad ever about going back and making an image look the way you saw it. Typically, we didn't talk too much about this either, but typically your camera will shoot JPEGs. Just about everybody's camera is going to shoot JPEG. If you have an SLR camera, it might also have the capability of shooting in RAW. Shooting in RAW is fantastic. The files are much bigger, so that's something to keep in mind depending on, you know, your space. Shooting in RAW is one more thing where you're saying, don't make any decisions for me. You know, I want to make all of the decisions. So if you choose to shoot in RAW, you're choosing to go back and basically develop all of your images. I mean, you can show a RAW image next to a JPEG, and a JPEG is going to be, you know, significantly more, you know, complete, more done looking. That RAW image is going to need contrast, and it's going to need things. It's RAW. You told the camera, don't make any choices. So you're going to end up coming back and, you know, tweaking your blacks and tweaking your exposure and tweaking contrast. And again, don't ever feel bad about going back and making these choices, because this is a huge part of the process, and it's a huge part of making the images look like yours too.